Experience one of Southern California's great botanical gardens when a talented group of artists display bold and daring works to explore the delicate balance between art and nature on this edition of Out and About.
Well, the word reverie actually means daydreaming, and the way I wanted to interpret that in my artwork was to show a nighttime scene where there's actually like night dreaming instead of daydreaming. You'd actually be daydreaming at night, and have more of a romantic, quiet setting. And then a scene where it's daydreaming. This would be in the morning when the birds are very active, and that's how I interpreted it when I made my installations.
The Days of Reverie at Descanso Gardens here in Southern California on another edition of Out and About with Roger Martin.
Like the opening of a rose on a warm spring morning, the electrifying works of a team of visionary artists unfold at Descanso Gardens. The special exhibition encompasses the works of 4 visual artists and 1 music composer, all of whom convey the dynamic relationship between art and nature, with expressive and emotional presentations.
Days of Reverie is the name that was given to this beautiful show by the curator of the show. I wrote the catalog essay for this show, and I know all of the artists, and I know Voice Love for a long time, and I'm impressed with all of their work so much. They're all just perfect, and they're perfectly suited to Descanso Gardens because they all do work that is highly indicative and involved in, immersive in nature. You know, you have Ruane with the roses and the sycamores. You have the beautiful poppies with the natural wood and the eucalyptus and everything from Jill Sykes. You have the intimate like leaves, the mandalas, the gilded and bronzed pieces in Jason Jenn's room, and Debbie Korbel's absolutely fabulous deer sculpture and birds that are also talk about the fauna of the garden as opposed to the flora.
The spectacular autumn displays provide the perfect idyllic backdrop for the artists, and this inspiration is reflected in their stunning works.
This is a piece that I made for the Days of Reverie show. It's called Night Dreaming. It's actually a mule deer, which is one of the species of animals that's found here in the garden at Descanso Gardens. I wanted to include a number of the species that are found here in the garden. We've also included the blue lazuli bunting, which is one of the birds that's found here in the garden. And the piece I've created here, the title was based on an old 50s song, In the Still of the Night by the Five Satins. And I thought it was fitting because it actually captured that stillness, that calmness, and the quiet that I was looking to represent in the artwork that I created. Kind of a starry sanctuary where a person could gather their own thoughts.
How did you come up with that blue?
Well, I wanted to extend the color palette that I used in this installation. I have 2 installations here at the show, and I wanted to use the same color palette for both installations, and I wanted to take a little artistic license and make something that I had never seen before. I don't want to do something that's hyper-realistic. It's a little more fun to do something a little fantastical. And it's also a little more dreamlike. This installation represents more daydreaming at night, and my other installation would be set in the morning. So,
Debbie, tell me about that rack that I'm looking at.
Well, this was inspired again by what is found in the garden. These are magnolia blossoms, and that's something that you can see here in the gardens that grows here. And they're especially beautiful, and I wanted to incorporate them, again, to have something a little fantasy-like, where they're actually blooming, where they're taken care of and cherished and respected and appreciated here in the gardens.
I noticed the composition is that cardboard?
It is cardboard. It actually has a steel armature inside, and then layers of cardboard that are all hand painted and placed, anatomically correct to compose the sculpture.
How long did it take you to get all this together?
It takes months, because it's not just the concept to come up with what I want to make, but then you have to solve the puzzle of how you're going to do it. So there's some engineering involved, which is not necessarily my favorite part, but it has to get done.
The towering majestic trees which stretch to the heavens are just one of several inspirations for another artist, whose drawings of sycamore leaves capture the subtle details of nature's brilliant designs.
Well, these are all drawings that I've made within about a year and a half. It's taken about that long to draw all the leaves. These are sycamore leaves, and they're leaves that everything that I'm showing in this gallery were things that I have seen and been watching in the park, in Descanso Gardens.
So you had to do each an individual group, right?
Yes, they're all individual, drawn by hand on paper, then cut out and then attached to the walls.
How long did it take you to do all this?
A year and a half, but maybe a little longer than that, but yeah.
So it actually took you a year and a half, but did you do this all by yourself?
Yes. I had help cutting, but I did all the actual drawings by myself.
You had a lot of trips up and down the hill here to complete this project, I'll bet.
I had a lot to look at just from the grounds here in the garden.
Was there something that you went by, like did you conjure up something and then bring the idea up here, or did you get your imagination going and just start right out and paint?
I came up to the garden and spent about a week just walking around the grounds at all different times of days. And then I photographed a lot of the leaves and did a lot of sketch work, and then took all that back to the studio, and I pretty much had the material I needed to finish really drawing all these leaves.
So the source really is from here.
The garden. Yes, all here from the garden. This is a sycamore tree that grows here. Plus, sycamore is a native tree to California anyways, so, it had to be, one of our own. I actually do like drawing, and I'm most comfortable in the studio drawing, so when I finish with this show, I'll just go back to the studio and do more.
You were telling me earlier that you enjoyed watching the people looking at your work.
It's interesting because everybody seems to have a unique response, and since making art is kind of a solo kind of job, you're sort of in your studio by yourself. It's so much fun to get out and see what people, how they respond to it, and what they find in it, and what they think about when they look at the work.
What do you think about your work?
Actually, this whole idea came about from a book that I had read titled Orwell's Roses, and it was a book about George Orwell. And Orwell had, just prior the beginning of World War II, he was living in the northern part of England in a small rented cottage, And it was obvious that the war was coming on, and he said, I can't do anything to stop this, and I can't live with this much hate and loss and destruction, but I could plant a rose. And I thought, what a great example, and I feel the same way about, looking at what our country is facing and the war in the Middle East and all these horrible things that I can't do anything about.
But this project then was a way of expressing your emotions and feelings about that.
About that, and I can't, again, he couldn't stop the war, but he could plant a rose. I can't stop any horror, but I can draw a rose. And so that was what inspired all of this work.
Tell me now, how do you feel walking through this gallery?
Well, when I walk through this gallery, I feel the sense of like nature coming alive, only being recreated permanently. So you might have a fleeting glimpse of a deer or a beautiful bird that the artist Debbie Korbel has created so beautifully. But here you can stand and look at them. They're not going to fly away or run away from you. They're just gorgeous, and their colors, they're like cast in moonlight. They're beautiful, and then you go to Catherine's work, and again, roses fade, but not her roses. You're going to see those forever. And her tree leaves, they're never going to fall. They're just there. And she really historically loves to capture old and ancient trees, and so every time you see her trees, you think this is a piece of nature you might not get to see again memorialized. So all of the artists, and then of course Joseph Corillo with his beautiful musical score, it all just makes nature not only come alive and real, but it makes it kind of permanent, so you won't miss seeing it in a blink of an eye when the seasons change.
When we return, we'll delve deep into the glittering textures of the gold leaf work on actual leaves when we glimpse Jason Jenn's exquisite works. And we'll find ourselves trapped between light and shadow when Out and About continues.
This is my Messengers exhibit installation here at Descanso Gardens for the Days of Reverie exhibit, curated by Vojislav Radovanovic. The birds that you see behind me are lazuli buntings, and they're found here in Descanso Gardens. I wanted to use the species that are actually found here in the gardens for both of my installations here. And we also wanted to make the exhibit somewhat interactive, especially for the kids, to kind of point out that they should take notice of nature and actually realize that's something worth cherishing and taking care of. We've provided tags, which you can see behind me, for people to write on or draw on and send their messages to the trees or the garden or nature, and the lazuli buntings will symbolically deliver those messages.
So even the big people can send messages too, right?
Yes, the big people can send messages too. It's just time to be stop for a moment and be thoughtful and appreciate the things that we're actually a part of. It's not something separate. We're a part of nature. So it's a good way to remind us a little bit.
Continuing Out and About's coverage of Descanso Gardens and Canada Flintridge, we find ourselves at the Sturt Haaga Gallery for the opening of Days of Reverie. an astonishing show which draws inspiration from art and nature.
A lot of these pieces are based on plants that I've seen around the gardens here at Descanso. These are sycamore trees. There's a lot of trees around the gardens of sycamores, and over here we've got a lot of roses, and back there are some ginkgo trees and olives.
What did you use to create this?
Well, they're all very different. These pieces were all painted on panels, individual panels, and part of the trick with these guys was lining up the grain of the wood. And by turning the grains horizontally, it looked like a landscape. And then I drew the shapes on there and painted them and just had to make sure they lined up from panel to panel to panel. So as you look at them, you see a whole image, even though there's different panels.
While many of Jill's works glitter with subtle glints of shiny gold, they pale in comparison to the spectacular display of 5 Wonders showpieces which highlight her gilded theme.
Well, these gold pieces over here on this wall were totally an experiment that worked, which was very nice. And I had this idea to create like an abstract line drawing of some flowers, but I wanted them on the gold. A lot of it was technical. How do I manage that? How do I make this thing happen? And so I did several maquettes and little tests and things like that. And once I thought I might have it down, I brought out these big 5 panels and just jumped on it, and I think they came out.
The delicate simplicity of fallen leaves scattered on the floor of a lonely forest is enhanced in this luminous display of gilded creations found in this glittering presentation by artist Jason Jenn.
Jason, you have something to do with this room, don't you?
Yes, I am the artist of this site-specific installation. It's called Arboreal Soul. It is composed primarily of somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 individual leaves pinned to the wall to create these geometric designs and patterns. I painted and treated each of those leaves with different metallic leaf foils and pinned them with different styles of pin on the wall. I also have fiber art pieces on some redwood stumps, and then I have a center pedestal that invites the visitors to create their own artwork with plant materials.
Did you count all these leaves yourself?
I did count them. I'm just estimating that it's somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 based on the number that I counted. I'm going to do an official count at some point, but it took me about 2 weeks to install the entire exhibition and to paint the mural on the wall.
Well, that wasn't too long a period of time, I don't think.
No, it was really lovely, though, to have that amount of time. I've done installations before where I've had 3 hours to a day to do it. So this has been the longest amount of time, and I really wanted to give a lot of heart and soul. I do plan out what I'm going to design, but I also allow improv. I have a background as a performance artist. I decide what the shape the leaves are, and I kind of build the designs both based on pre-thought, but also in the moment. I let the moment go.
And I do see that you like gold.
I love gold, yes. I mean, there's something about, I wanted to elevate the material and to kind of take it to that religious icon or a very sacred relic, and to emphasize the sacred design and beauty of the individual leaf.
in Jason's work, you might see a falling leaf coming from a tree, but in his work, you can see those leaves just remaining there, and you can really look at each detail of the leaf and how precious they are, which he's really captured by gilding them and bronzing them. It's so perfect. And then with Jill Sykes, again, the flowers, the poppies are so delicate, and they'll close up, wind will come up, something will change them, and she's got them just kind of permanently there, and they're so absolutely amazing.
Thank you all so much for coming.
It's really exciting. I'm really honored to be working with this group of people, the other artists in the other rooms, and it's just been a real thrill. And we've all been really focused on this exhibition for about a year and a half now, and talking to each other all the time and exchanging ideas and just supporting each other. It's been really fabulous. I'm really, really proud of this work, and I'm really proud of being in this show.
You've been communicating with these people, aren't they? Friends of yours, etc.?
Yes, we're all friends, and that community support from other artists whose ideas and taste and aesthetics you trust is hugely important. And you can call somebody and ask a question and get like a yes or a no or a good idea, or have you tried this, or have you thought about that? And it's a really wonderful dialogue that you get in a community like this, any art community where you know the people. It makes a huge difference.
How does it feel to be part of this exhibition?
It feels wonderful. I've been a big fan of Descanso Gardens and seen a lot of shows here before. And so to get the opportunity to create something site-specifically, all of these leaves were gathered from the garden. I really wanted to do something very special. I've spent many days here meditating with the trees and coming up with the design based on that process of developing it over time.
For many visitors, casually wandering beneath the wonders of Descanso Gardens' lush canopy offers a welcome reprieve from the outside world. The natural beauty reflects nature's own personal art gallery, where patrons peacefully stroll through the towering sycamores and oak trees of a dreaming forest, while soothing melodies like those of Joseph Corillo provide the musical backdrop.
It's a beautiful setting. You could not have a better setting, and it's just an absolutely stunning show. I mean, I think each of the artists' work was so well thought out and fit perfectly with the garden and the different seasons of the gardens. Like the roses are only in bloom at a certain time, the sycamores, the poppies, the fallen leaves, they're all sort of almost represent different seasons.
Here at Descanso Gardens.
Yeah, here at Descanso Gardens, it's just each of the seasons here is unique, and each of the pieces in the show reflects the different seasons in Descanso Gardens for sure. And those artists are, again, Debbie Korbel, who did the sculptures of the birds and the deer. And she's using, among other forms, clay and cardboard, which is just amazing to create those pieces. And then you have Jill Sykes' work on wood panel and on canvas, and they're just stunning pieces with the gold leaf in them. And you have Ruane's beautiful graphite and charcoal roses and those sycamore leaves that are just towering up to the ceiling, which really just kind of has to be seen to be believed. And then you have the beautiful gilded leaf mandalas and tree recreations and gilded and bronzed branches from Jason Jenn. And again, Voice Love did just an amazing, amazing job of curating this fabulous show.
To experience this extraordinary display of artistic expression, don't miss Days of Reverie, on display at the Sturt Haaga Gallery at Descanso Gardens in Canada Flintridge until the end of January.